In the small, quiet town of Maplewood, life moved at a slow and predictable pace. The streets were lined with modest houses, and the air carried the faint smell of pine trees that surrounded the area. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and nothing much ever seemed to happen. But for Alex Carter, a high school junior with a knack for creativity, things were about to change in ways no one could have imagined. Alex wasn't like most teenagers in Maplewood. While others spent their free time playing video games or scrolling through social media, Alex preferred sketching designs in his notebook or tinkering with old pieces of clothing to turn them into something unique. His favorite possession was an old denim jacket he had found at a thrift store. Over time, he had transformed it into a canvas of self-expression, sewing patches onto it that reflected his personality, patches of musical notes, paintbrushes, and even a small cartoon of a rocket ship blasting off into space. To Alex, the jacket wasn't just clothing. It was a part of who he was. On a crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves swirled in the wind, Alex decided to wear the jacket to school. He knew it might raise some eyebrows. Maplewood High School had strict rules about what students could and couldn't wear, and Alex's jacket didn't exactly fit the mold. But lately, Alex had been feeling suffocated by all the rules. Everywhere he turned, there seemed to be someone telling him how to act, how to dress, and even how to think. This time. He wanted to push back, even if just a little. As Alex walked through the school's front doors, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He kept his head down, hoping no one would notice the jacket right away. But it didn't take long for whispers to spread among his classmates. Some thought it was cool, while others laughed and called it weird. Alex tried to ignore them, focusing instead on getting through the day. By second period, word of Alex's jacket had reached Principal Roger Daniels. Principal Daniels was a tall, stern man in his late 50s with thinning gray hair and a reputation for being strict. He believed in order above all else and ran the school with an iron fist. To him, the dress code wasn't just a set of guidelines, it was a symbol of discipline and respect. When he heard about Alex's jacket, he immediately summoned him to his office. The walk to the principal's office felt endless. Alex's heart pounded as he replayed the possible outcomes in his mind. Would he get detention, a warning, or worse? When he finally stepped inside, Principal Daniels was sitting behind his desk, his face unreadable. "Take a seat, Mr. Carter," he said in a voice that was calm but firm. Alex sat down, clutching the straps of his backpack tightly. "I assume you know why you're here?" Principal Daniels continued, gesturing toward the jacket. Alex nodded slowly, unsure of what to say. "This isn't the first time we've had issues with inappropriate attire," the principal went on. "We have standards here, Alex. Standards that every student is expected to follow." Alex swallowed hard. "I'm not trying to cause trouble," he said quietly. "This jacket, it means something to me. It's not just clothes, it's about being myself." Principal Daniels leaned back in his chair, folding his hands together. For a moment, he looked almost thoughtful, as though he might consider Alex's words, but then his expression hardened again. "Self-expression has its place," he said coldly. "But this is a school, not a fashion show. Rules exist for a reason, and they apply to everyone equally." Alex opened his mouth to argue further, but the principal cut him off. "You've left me with no choice," he said. "Effective immediately, you are suspended from Maplewood High School. You can return only after your parents meet with me to discuss your behavior." The room seemed to spin as Alex processed what he had just heard. Suspended? For wearing a jacket? It didn't feel real. He wanted to protest, to explain that he wasn't doing anything wrong, but the look on Principal Daniel's face told him it wouldn't matter. With a heavy heart, Alex stood up and left the office, his mind racing. When Alex got home later that afternoon, his mother, Linda, was waiting for him. She was a kind woman in her early 40s with warm brown eyes and a tired smile. Working 2 jobs to provide for her family had taken a toll on her, but she always made sure Alex knew she loved him. Seeing the look on his face, she immediately knew something was wrong. What happened? She asked, concern etched into her voice. Alex hesitated before speaking. I got suspended, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Linda's eyes widened in shock. Suspended? For what? For wearing my jacket, Alex replied, holding it up so she could see. Principal Daniels said it broke the dress code. Linda stared at the jacket, taking in the colorful patches and the care that had gone into customizing it. Then she sighed deeply, running a hand through her hair. Oh, Alex, she said softly. Why did you do it? You knew the rules. I just wanted to be myself, Alex said, his voice trembling. Is that really so bad? Linda didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled him into a hug, holding him tightly. No, it's not bad, she said finally. But sometimes, the world doesn't make it easy to be who you are. For the rest of the evening, Linda tried to comfort Alex, though she couldn't hide her frustration. How could the school punish her son for something so small? She had worked so hard to give him a stable life, and now this. As they sat together at the kitchen table, eating a simple dinner of macaroni and cheese, Linda promised Alex that they would figure things out. We'll fight this, she said firmly. They can't treat you like this. But deep down, Linda wasn't sure what they could do. They were just a regular family in a small town, up against a system that seemed impossible to change. Little did they know help was closer than they thought, and it would arrive in the most unexpected way. The next morning, Maplewood was bathed in soft sunlight as the town woke up to another ordinary day. Alex stayed home from school, feeling restless and unsure of what to do with himself. He wandered around the house aimlessly, flipping through his sketchbook and trying to distract himself from the weight of his suspension. Linda had already left for her first job, leaving him alone with his thoughts. As much as he tried to focus on drawing, his mind kept drifting back to Principal Daniels' stern face and the unfairness of it all. Around mid-morning, Alex heard the sound of a car pulling up outside. At first, he didn't pay much attention. He assumed it was one of their neighbors or maybe a delivery truck. But when he glanced out the window, he froze. Parked in front of their modest house was a sleek black Rolls-Royce, gleaming under the sun like something out of a movie. Cars like that didn't belong in Maplewood. Neighbors began peeking out of their windows, whispering to each other about who could possibly own such an extravagant vehicle. Alex watched curiously as the driver's door opened, and a tall man stepped out. He looked to be in his late 50s, dressed in an expensive suit that fit him perfectly. His salt and pepper hair was neatly styled, and his confident posture made him stand out even more against the backdrop of the quiet neighborhood. For a moment, Alex wondered if the man had come to the wrong address. Who would visit them in a car like that? The man approached the front door and rang the bell. Alex hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. Hello? The man said warmly, offering a polite smile. Is this where Alex Carter lives? Alex nodded slowly, still taken aback by the stranger's presence. Yeah, I'm Alex. The man extended his hand. It's nice to meet you, Alex. My name is Jonathan Hayes. I hope it's okay if I stop by. I've heard about your situation and wanted to talk. Alex shook his hand, feeling a mix of confusion and curiosity. Sure. Come in. Jonathan stepped inside, glancing around the cozy living room with its worn furniture and faded curtains. Despite the simplicity of the space, he seemed unfazed. Thank you, he said, taking a seat at the dining table. I'll get straight to the point. I understand you were suspended from school recently because of your jacket. Is that correct? Alex nodded again, sitting across from him. Yeah, that's right. The principal said it broke the dress code. Jonathan leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful. May I see the jacket? Without hesitation, Alex fetched the denim jacket from his room and handed it to Jonathan. As the man examined it closely, his eyes softened. This is impressive work, he said after a moment. You did all this yourself? Yeah, Alex replied, feeling a small sense of pride despite the circumstances. It took me a while, but I wanted it to mean something. Jonathan nodded approvingly. It shows a lot of creativity and personality. I can see why it's important to you. For the first time since his suspension, Alex felt like someone truly understood him. Most people either dismissed his jacket as unimportant or criticized it without really looking at it. But Jonathan seemed genuinely interested. After a few moments of silence, Jonathan spoke again. Let me tell you a little about myself, Alex. I grew up here in Maplewood, not too far from this very house. Back then, my family didn't have much. We struggled to make ends meet. I remember being in your shoes once, facing rules that felt unfair and dreaming of a better future. Someone gave me a chance back then, and it changed everything for me. Alex listened intently, hanging on to every word. It was strange to think of this successful man as someone who had once been like him, a kid with big dreams but limited opportunities. I want to help you, Alex, Jonathan continued. What happened? At your school shouldn't define your future. You deserve to be somewhere that values your talent and individuality. That's why I'd like to offer you a place at Crestwood Academy. Alex blinked in surprise. Crestwood Academy? Isn't that really expensive? Jonathan chuckled softly. Yes, it is. But don't worry about that. I'll cover all the costs. Crestwood is known for fostering creativity and independent thinking. I believe it's exactly the kind of environment where you'll thrive. Alex's mind raced. He had heard of Crestwood Academy before. It was located in the nearby city and considered one of the best private schools in the region. Students there went on to attend top universities and pursue exciting careers. The idea of attending such a prestigious school felt almost surreal. But what about my mom? Alex asked hesitantly. She works so hard just to keep us going. I don't know if she'd agree to something like this. She doesn't have to decide anything yet, Jonathan reassured him. We'll discuss it together when she gets home. All I ask is that you keep an open mind. As they waited for Linda to return, Jonathan shared stories about his own journey, from growing up poor in Maplewood to building a successful business empire. He spoke passionately about the importance of education and how it had opened doors for him that he never thought possible. Alex found himself inspired by Jonathan's words, imagining a future where he too could achieve great things. When Linda arrived home later that afternoon, she was startled to find Jonathan sitting at her kitchen table. After introducing himself, Jonathan explained his proposal to her. At first, Linda was hesitant. Accepting such a generous offer from a stranger felt overwhelming, especially since she prided herself on providing for her family independently. But as Jonathan shared his vision for Alex's future and promised that there were no strings attached, she began to see the potential. This isn't charity, Jonathan emphasized. It's an investment in Alex's talent and determination. He reminds me of myself at his age, and I want to give him the same opportunity someone once gave me. By the end of their conversation, Linda felt a mixture of gratitude and hope. She knew how much Alex struggled to fit into the rigid structure of public school, and the thought of him thriving in a place like Crestwood filled her with pride. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that this sudden turn of events was almost too good to be true. That evening, as Alex and Linda sat together discussing Jonathan's offer, they realized that life had thrown them an unexpected lifeline. For Alex, it was a chance to break free from the limitations that had held him back. For Linda, it was a reminder that sometimes, even in the smallest towns, miracles could happen. As Jonathan prepared to leave, he turned to Alex with a reassuring smile. Think about it carefully, he said. And remember, this isn't just about escaping a bad situation. It's about creating a brighter future. With those words, Jonathan climbed back into his Rolls-Royce and drove away, leaving behind a swirl of emotions and possibilities. For Alex and Linda, the road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in days it felt full of promise. The days following Jonathan Hayes's visit passed in a blur for Alex and his mother, Linda. Both of them were still trying to process the enormity of what had been offered. A chance to attend Crestwood Academy, an elite private school known for nurturing creativity and innovation, felt like something out of a dream. But it also came with questions and doubts. Was this too good to be true? Could Alex really leave behind everything familiar and step into a completely different world? Linda wrestled with her feelings the most. She was grateful to Jonathan for stepping in, but she couldn't shake the worry that accepting his help might come with strings attached. What if Alex struggled to fit in at such a prestigious school? What if they ended up owing Jonathan more than they could ever repay? Despite these concerns, Linda knew one thing for certain. Maplewood High wasn't working for Alex anymore. The suspension had made that painfully clear. For Alex, the idea of starting over at Crestwood was both thrilling and terrifying. He imagined walking through halls filled with students who seemed smarter, richer, and more confident than him. Would he stand out as the kid from the wrong side of town? Or worse, would he feel like an outsider again? Even so, the thought of being somewhere where creativity was celebrated instead of punished gave him hope. A few days later, Linda called Jonathan to thank him once more and share their decision. "We've talked about it," she said hesitantly, "and we'd like to accept your offer. It's just, I don't know how to repay you." Jonathan's response was calm and reassuring. "There's no need to repay me, Linda," he said kindly. "This is about giving Alex a chance to shine. If he succeeds, that will be repayment enough." With the decision made, preparations began quickly. Jonathan arranged for Alex to tour Crestwood Academy before officially transferring there. On the day of the visit, Alex and Linda drove to the city together, marveling at how different it felt compared to their small town. The academy itself was breathtaking, a sprawling campus, with modern buildings, lush green lawns, and state-of-the-art facilities. Students walked around carrying laptops and sketchbooks, chatting animatedly about projects and ideas. As they toured the school, Alex couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. Classrooms buzzed with energy, teachers encouraged open discussions, and bulletin boards displayed student artwork and inventions. One teacher even stopped to introduce herself, saying, "Welcome to Crestwood. We're always looking for creative minds like yours." Her words stayed with Alex long after the tour ended. Back in Maplewood, news of Alex's impending transfer spread quickly. Some neighbors congratulated Linda, calling it a lucky break. Others whispered behind closed doors, wondering why a wealthy stranger would take such an interest in a local boy. Meanwhile, Principal Daniels grew increasingly uneasy. Word had reached him that Jonathan Hayes planned to challenge the school board over its outdated dress code policies. To Daniels, this felt like a direct threat to his authority and his reputation. Determined to defend his actions, Daniels called an emergency meeting of the school board. Parents, teachers, and community members gathered in the high school auditorium, filling the rows of seats. Tension hung thick in the air as people debated whether the dress code should be revised. Daniels argued passionately that rules were necessary to maintain order, while others countered that stifling self-expression did more harm than good. Alex and Linda attended the meeting, sitting quietly near the back. When it was time for public comments, Alex stood up nervously, gripping a piece of paper with notes he had written earlier. His hands trembled as he approached the microphone, but his voice grew steadier as he began to speak. "I didn't mean to cause trouble when I wore my jacket," Alex started, glancing at the crowd. "All I wanted was to express myself, to show people who I am. But instead of understanding, I got punished, suspended, for wearing clothes that didn't hurt anyone." He paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. "I'm not asking for special treatment. I just think schools should let kids be themselves. Creativity isn't something you can turn off. It's part of who we are. And if we're forced to hide it, we lose a piece of ourselves." The room fell silent as Alex finished speaking. Several parents nodded in agreement, and some even clapped softly. Among them was Susan Meyer, a longtime member of the school board, who had always advocated for change. She smiled warmly at Alex before addressing the group. "Alex makes a valid point," Susan said firmly. "Our policies should encourage individuality, not suppress it. Maybe it's time we rethink how we handle things like dress codes." Principal Daniels tried to argue against the idea, insisting that loosening the rules would lead to chaos. But his arguments lacked conviction in the face of growing support for reform. By the end of the meeting, the board voted unanimously to revised the dress code policy, allowing students more freedom to express themselves through their clothing. Though Daniels kept his job, the damage to his image was undeniable. For the first time in years, someone had dared to question his leadership and won. Meanwhile, Alex returned home feeling a sense of accomplishment he hadn't expected. Standing up for himself had sparked real change, not just for him, but for other students as well. In the weeks leading up to his transfer, Alex prepared for his new life at Crestwood Academy. Jonathan helped by providing resources and advice, making sure Alex felt ready for the transition. Linda worked hard to balance her emotions, pride for her son's courage mixed with anxiety about letting him go. Still, she reminded herself that this was an opportunity Alex deserved. On Alex's last night in Maplewood, he sat on the porch with Linda, watching the stars twinkle above the quiet town. "Do you think I'll fit in at Crestwood?" Alex asked softly, breaking the silence. Linda smiled, reaching over to pat his hand. "You'll do more than fit in, sweetheart. You'll stand out. Just be yourself. That's all anyone can ask." 4. Alex nodded, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. Tomorrow marked the beginning of a new chapter, one full of possibilities he could barely imagine. As he drifted off to sleep that night, he held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something amazing. The first day at Crestwood Academy felt like stepping into another world for Alex. The sun was just beginning to rise as he and Linda drove through the city streets, the tall buildings casting long shadows over the sidewalks below. Alex sat quietly in the passenger seat, clutching his backpack tightly. He had spent the entire weekend preparing mentally for this moment, but now that it was here, he couldn't shake the nervous flutter in his stomach. When they arrived at the school, Alex stepped out of the car and looked up at the grand entrance. The campus was even more impressive up close. Modern glass buildings reflected the morning light, and students milled about with an air of confidence that made Alex feel both inspired and intimidated. Linda gave him a quick hug before leaving. "You've got this," she said with a reassuring smile. "Just be yourself." As Alex walked toward the main building, he noticed how different everything felt compared to Maplewood High. Students greeted each other warmly, some exchanging laughter while others discussed projects or books they were reading. Teachers smiled as they passed by, offering friendly nods. It was clear that this place valued connection and creativity in ways his old school never had. Alex's first class was art design, a subject he had always loved but rarely excelled at due to limited resources at Maplewood. When he entered the classroom, he found rows of easels, shelves stocked with paints and brushes, and large tables covered in sketch pads and drafting tools. The teacher, Ms. Harper, introduced herself with a warm smile. "Welcome, Alex," she said. "I'm so glad you're here. Let's see what you can create." For the first time in years, Alex felt truly excited about learning. Over the next few weeks, he threw himself into his classes, soaking up every opportunity to grow. His art teacher encouraged him to experiment with new techniques, while his literature instructor praised his unique perspective on classic novels. Even subjects he hadn't enjoyed before, like math and science, became engaging when framed as problem-solving challenges. Outside of class, Alex began making friends. There was Mia, a quiet girl who loved photography and often invited him to join her on weekend trips to capture scenes around the city. Then there was Jake, a tech-savvy student who shared Alex's passion for innovation. Together, they brainstormed ideas for inventions, dreaming of creating something that could change the world, or at least make life easier for people. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Adjusting to Crestwood came with its own set of challenges. Some students, though polite, seemed distant, as if unsure how to relate to someone from a small town. Others whispered about Alex behind his back, speculating about why Jonathan Hayes had chosen to fund his education. At times, Alex wondered if he belonged in such an elite environment. Doubts crept in late at night when the excitement of the day faded, leaving him alone with his thoughts. One afternoon, after a particularly tough day, Alex called Linda to vent. "It's not that bad," he admitted, "but sometimes I feel like I don't fit in, like maybe I shouldn't be here." Linda listened patiently, her voice steady and kind. Alex, you earned your spot there, don't forget that. Yes, Jonathan helped open the door, but you're the one walking through it. You belong wherever you choose to put your heart and effort. Her words stayed with him, giving him the strength to push through moments of doubt. Slowly but surely, Alex began to find his footing. He joined the school's art club, where his sketches and designs earned praise from both peers and teachers. During lunch breaks, he started sharing stories about growing up in Maplewood, finding that many of his classmates were curious about his background. In turn, they opened up about their own lives, forging bonds that went beyond surface-level differences. Back in Maplewood, changes continued to ripple through the community. The revised dress code policy sparked conversations among parents and students alike. For the first time, kids felt freer to express themselves without fear of punishment. Some wore colorful scarves, others sported band t-shirts or hand-painted sneakers. Even Principal Daniels, though reluctant, had no choice but to adapt to the new normal. Word of Alex's success at Crestwood reached Maplewood quickly. Neighbors spoke proudly of how far he had come, crediting his courage for inspiring change in the town. Linda, meanwhile, kept in touch with Jonathan, updating him on Alex's progress. Their friendship deepened as they discussed ways to help other underprivileged students access opportunities like the one Alex had received. Together, they began planning a scholarship program aimed at supporting talented youth from small towns. As the months passed, Alex grew more confident in his abilities. He submitted one of his designs, a jacket similar to the one that had caused so much trouble, to a regional fashion competition. To his surprise, he won second place, earning recognition from local designers and media outlets. The victory boosted his self-esteem and solidified his belief that creativity could lead to meaningful achievements. By the end of his first semester, Alex realized how much he had changed. He wasn't the same shy teenager who had been afraid to stand out at Maplewood High. Instead, he had become someone who embraced his individuality and used it to connect with others. Crestwood had given him the tools to explore his passions, but it was his resilience and determination that had carried him forward. One evening, as Alex sat in his room sketching ideas for a new project, he thought about how far he had come. From being suspended for wearing a patched-up jacket to winning awards for his designs, his journey had been anything but ordinary. And yet, none of it would have happened without the support of those around him, his mother, who believed in him unconditionally, Jonathan, who saw potential in him when others didn't, and even the challenges that forced him to grow stronger. Alex smiled to himself, feeling grateful for the twists and turns that had brought him to this point. Life wasn't perfect, and there were still obstacles ahead. But he knew one thing. For certain, he was ready to face them head-on. Whatever the future held, he was determined to keep pushing boundaries and proving that self-expression wasn't just important, it was essential. The years rolled by faster than Alex could have imagined. What had once felt like an overwhelming leap into the unknown at Crestwood Academy now seemed like the beginning of a journey that had shaped him in ways he never expected. As graduation approached, Alex found himself reflecting on how much he had grown, not just academically, but personally. The shy teenager who had been suspended for wearing a denim jacket was gone, replaced by a confident young man with a clear vision for his future. Crestwood had given Alex opportunities he could barely have dreamed of back in Maplewood. His art and design skills flourished under the guidance of talented teachers, and his projects began gaining attention beyond the school walls. By his senior year, Alex had built a portfolio that showcased his unique style, a blend of creativity, storytelling, and functionality. One of his standout pieces was a line of customizable jackets inspired by the very one that had started it all. Each jacket told a story through its patches, colors, and textures, symbolizing themes like resilience, identity, and self-expression. When Alex submitted his portfolio to top universities, he wasn't sure what to expect. He knew competition would be fierce, especially since many applicants came from families with more resources and connections. But Jonathan had encouraged him to aim high, reminding him that talent and hard work mattered most. To Alex's astonishment, he received acceptance letters from several prestigious schools, including one of the country's leading design institutes. It was a moment of triumph not just for Alex but for Linda too, who cried tears of joy when she heard the news. In the weeks leading up to graduation, Alex spent hours preparing his valedictorian speech. Though he had always been quiet and reserved, he wanted to use this platform to share his story and thank the people who had helped him along the way. On the day of the ceremony, as he stood before his classmates, teachers, and family, Alex took a deep breath and began. "When I first came to Crestwood Academy, I didn't know if I belonged here," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves bubbling inside him. "I was just a kid from a small town who loved making things, but I didn't think anyone cared about what I had to offer. Then something amazing happened. People believed in me. My mom worked tirelessly to give me a chance. My teachers pushed me to be better, and someone I barely knew, Jonathan Hayes, took a risk on me." He paused, looking out at the crowd. Jonathan sat near the front, smiling proudly alongside Linda. "That belief changed everything for me," Alex continued. "It taught me that we all have the power to lift each other up. And it showed me that being yourself isn't just important. It's necessary. Because when you embrace who you are, you inspire others to do the same." The audience erupted into applause, and Alex felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. For so long, he had doubted whether he deserved this kind of success. Now, standing there surrounded by people who supported him, he realized that every challenge he had faced had led him to this moment. After graduation, Alex moved to the city to attend the Design Institute. Living on his own for the first time was daunting, but he quickly adapted to the fast-paced urban environment. Classes were demanding, requiring long hours of sketching, sewing, and experimenting with new materials. Yet Alex thrived, pouring his heart into every project. His professors praised his ability to blend personal meaning with practical design, calling his work bold and innovative. During his second year, Alex launched a small clothing line called Patchwork Dreams. The brand focused on customizable jackets, hoodies, and bags, each piece designed to reflect the wearer's individuality. He used recycled fabrics and sustainable materials, emphasizing the importance of eco-friendly fashion. At first, sales were modest, but word spread quickly thanks to social media. Soon, influencers and magazines began featuring Alex's designs, praising their uniqueness and craftsmanship. As Patchwork Dreams gained traction, Alex found himself invited to speak at events and workshops. He talked passionately about the value of self-expression and the need for inclusivity in the fashion industry. "Clothes aren't just fabric. They're a way to tell your story," he often said. "Everyone deserves to feel seen and heard, no matter where they come from or what they look like." Back in Maplewood, life had transformed in subtle yet significant ways. Inspired by Alex's courage, students at Maplewood High continued challenging outdated rules and advocating for change. The revised dress code policy sparked broader conversations about fairness and equality, encouraging other schools in the area to rethink their own policies. Principal Daniels eventually retired, leaving behind a legacy marked by controversy and eventual reform. Linda remained deeply involved in her community, working alongside Jonathan to expand the scholarship program they had started. Together, they identified talented students from underserved backgrounds and provided them with financial support to pursue higher education. Many recipients credited the program with changing their lives, just as Alex's had been changed years earlier. As for Jonathan, his investment in Alex proved to be one of the most rewarding decisions of his life. Watching Alex grow from a struggling teenager into a successful designer filled him with pride. Their relationship evolved from mentorship to genuine friendship, with Jonathan often attending Alex's fashion shows and offering advice whenever needed. By the time Alex graduated from the Design Institute, Patchwork Dreams had become a nationally recognized brand. Stores across the country carried his designs, and celebrities wore his jackets on red carpets. Journalists interviewed him regularly, eager to learn about the young designer who had turned adversity into art. Despite the fame, Alex stayed grounded, always remembering where he came from. One evening, after a particularly busy day, Alex sat in his studio surrounded by sketches, fabric swatches, and half-finished projects. He picked up his original denim jacket, the one that had caused so much trouble, and ran his fingers over the patches. Each one represented a chapter in his journey: resilience, creativity, hope. Smiling softly, he hung the jacket on the wall, deciding it deserved a place of honor. Alex knew his story wasn't just about him. It was about the countless people who had believed in him, the challenges that had shaped him, and the message he hoped to send to others. That being true to yourself is worth fighting for. No matter where life took him next, he vowed to keep creating, inspiring, and giving back. Years passed, and Alex Carter's name became synonymous with creativity, resilience, and self-expression. What had started as a small clothing line called Patchwork Dreams had grown into a global brand, celebrated not only for its unique designs, but also for its message of inclusivity and sustainability. Alex's journey from a quiet teenager in Maplewood to an internationally recognized designer was nothing short of extraordinary. Yet, despite his success, he never forgot the people and moments that had shaped him along the way. Alex's studio, located in the heart of the city, buzzed with energy every day. It was a colorful space filled with sketches pinned to walls, rolls of fabric stacked neatly in corners, and racks of jackets waiting to be finished. The team he had built over the years shared his passion for storytelling through design. Together, they worked tirelessly to create pieces that resonated with people from all walks of life. Each jacket told a story. Some were inspired by Alex's own experiences, while others reflected the stories of customers who had reached out to share their struggles and triumphs. One of Alex's proudest achievements was launching a community program called Threads of Change. Through this initiative, he partnered with schools and youth organizations to teach underprivileged kids about fashion design and entrepreneurship. He often visited classrooms, showing students how to transform old clothes into something new and meaningful. "You don't need expensive materials to create something beautiful," he would tell them. "All you need is imagination and the courage to try." The program quickly gained traction, earning support from local businesses and even national sponsors. Many participants went on to pursue careers in art and design, crediting Alex with helping them discover their potential. For Alex, seeing these young creators thrive brought him immense joy. It reminded him of his own journey, the moment when someone had believed in him and given him a chance to shine. Back in Maplewood, Linda watched her son's success with pride. She still lived in the same modest house, though it now felt brighter somehow thanks to the framed articles and photos of Alex displayed throughout the living room. Neighbors often stopped by to chat, eager to hear updates about his latest projects or collaborations. Though she missed having him close, Linda knew Alex was exactly where he was meant to be, changing lives, one jacket at a time. Jonathan Hayes remained a constant presence in both Alex's and Linda's lives. Their friendship had deepened over the years, evolving into a partnership focused on giving back to the community. Together, they expanded the scholarship program, ensuring more students from small towns like Maplewood could access opportunities they might otherwise miss. Jonathan frequently attended Alex's events, marveling at how far he had come since that first meeting in their kitchen. One evening, after a particularly successful charity gala hosted by Alex, Jonathan pulled him aside. "You've done incredible things," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "But I have to ask, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself going?" Alex smiled, leaning against the railing of the rooftop venue. Lights from the city twinkled below, casting a soft glow over the skyline. "Honestly, I'm not sure," he admitted. "There's still so much I want to do. Maybe open a school for aspiring designers or collaborate with artists from different fields. Or maybe just keep telling stories through my work. Whatever it is, I know it'll involve helping others find their voice." Jonathan nodded approvingly. "That's what makes you special, Alex. You're not just building a legacy, you're creating a movement." As the months rolled by, Alex continued expanding Patchwork Dreams. His designs appeared in major fashion shows around the world, earning accolades from critics and fans alike. Magazines featured him on their covers, calling him a pioneer in sustainable fashion. Yet, despite the glitz and glamour, Alex stayed, true to his roots. He often returned to Maplewood, visiting schools and speaking at community events. To the kids there, he wasn't just a famous designer, he was proof that dreams could become reality if you dared to chase them. One summer afternoon, Alex found himself standing in front of a crowd at Maplewood High School. The auditorium was packed with students, teachers, and parents, all eager to hear him speak. As he walked onto the stage, memories flooded back. The suspension, the protests, the speeches. He took a deep breath before beginning. "When I was your age, I thought my future depended on following rules," Alex said, his voice steady and warm. "I thought staying quiet was safer than standing out. But then something happened. I realized that being myself wasn't just important. It was necessary. That patchwork jacket I wore, it wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a symbol of who I was and who I wanted to be." He paused, scanning the faces of the students before him. Some looked curious, others inspired. "Life will throw challenges your way," he continued. "People might tell you no or make you feel like you don't belong, but don't let that stop you. Believe in yourself, even when it feels impossible, and surround yourself with people who believe in you too. Because sometimes all it takes is one person to change everything." The room erupted into applause, and Alex felt a familiar warmth in his chest. Speaking to these kids reminded him why he had started Patchwork Dreams in the first place, not just to sell clothes, but to remind people that they mattered. Later that evening, as Alex drove home with Linda, he reflected on how far they had come. From the days of struggling to make ends meet to standing on stages addressing thousands, their lives had transformed in ways neither of them could have predicted. Yet through it all, their bond had only grown stronger. "You've changed the world, Alex," Linda said softly, breaking the silence. "Not just for yourself, but for everyone who looks up to you." Alex glanced at her, smiling. "We did it together, Mom. None of this would have happened without you." By the end of the year, Alex made another bold move. He published a book titled Where Your Story, part memoir, part guidebook. It chronicled his journey from Maplewood to global recognition, offering advice to readers on embracing their individuality and pursuing their passions. The book became a bestseller, further cementing Alex's status as a role model for young creators everywhere. Through it all, Alex remained humble, always remembering the lessons he had learned along the way. Life hadn't been easy, but every challenge had taught him something valuable. Being expelled from school, meeting Jonathan, attending Crestwood Academy, it all led him to where he was now. And while the road ahead was uncertain, Alex knew one thing for sure. He would keep using his platform to inspire others, proving that even the smallest act of defiance could spark monumental change. As he sat in his studio late one night sketching ideas for his next collection, Alex couldn't help but smile. His journey had been unpredictable, messy, and beautiful, all at once. But it was far from over. There were still stories to tell, dreams to chase, and lives to touch. And as long as he kept believing in himself and encouraging others to do the same, there was no limit to what he could achieve.